The galaxy was vast and dark, stretching endlessly like a black ocean dotted with tiny islands of light. Stars flickered, distant planets spun silently in their orbits, and comets carved bright trails across the emptiness. For most civilizations, space was a place of wonder, but for the Xylar Dominion it was a hunting ground. They had ruled hundreds of systems, crushing weaker species with brutal efficiency. They had conquered planets, enslaved civilizations, and believed nothing could challenge their might. Yet whispers had reached their grand war halls, rumors of a new fleet that belonged to a species called humans. The stories frightened even the bravest Xylar admirals. Small, fragile creatures, they said. Unpredictable, but powerful beyond reason. The Xylar Empire had never faced humans before. They were unknown. And in the Dominion, the unknown was always a threat. Admiral Vorek, a towering figure with metallic armor and eyes like burning coals, studied the reports. His sharp claws tapped against the armrest of his command chair. "Prepare a reconnaissance mission," he ordered, his voice cold as the void outside. "I want to spy inside their fleet. I want to see what they are capable of, before we crush them." The chosen ship, a sleek black vessel built for stealth, slipped silently into the darkness. It was smaller than a human destroyer, designed to avoid detection at any cost. On board was Kylan, a young Xylar scout who had never left his home system before. He had trained his whole life for missions like this, learning how to observe, report, and strike if necessary. And yet, as he stared at the distant glimmer of human lights, his chest tightened with something unfamiliar: curiosity and fear. Kylan's species had no words for such emotions. Fear was expected. Curiosity toward the unknown was dangerous, but he could not deny it. The human fleet seemed different. Even from far away, he could sense something in their formation, a strange energy that hummed through space like a pulse. As his ship edged closer, Kylan studied their vessels. They were massive, far larger than what he expected from a species of human size. But what truly shocked him was the way they moved. Every ship moved as if it were alive, twisting and turning in perfect harmony. Each seemed to know exactly what the others were doing. It was not just organization, it was grace. Kylan whispered to himself, "They are thinking together. They are not like us." He had expected disorder, weakness, mistakes. The Dominion believed humans would panic, fight poorly, and crumble before a true attack. But now, in the cold dark of space, he could see a different story. He saw order, focus, and determination. The fleet was not large by Dominion standards, but it radiated strength, a strength that made Kylan's claws ache with unease. The scout kept his distance, careful to remain unseen. But as he observed, he noticed moments that unsettled him even more. A small human ship drifted near a damaged vessel, sending out repair drones and supplies. Another ship projected a shield that covered not just itself, but neighboring ships as well. They were protecting each other, even at risk to themselves. Kylan had never seen this before. In the Dominion, ships were tools and crews were expendable. Loyalty and compassion were weaknesses, not strengths. Yet here, humans seemed to draw power from something bigger than weapons or technology. They drew it from each other. Kylan felt a strange pull in his chest, a tightness he could not explain. It was as if the fleet itself was alive, and he was both frightened and fascinated by it. He wondered what it meant to fight not just for survival, but for each other. Could this be why humans were rumored to be unstoppable? Hours passed, and the scout continued to record everything. Every maneuver, every interaction, every silent gesture of care was etched into his memory. Deep down, he feared what would happen if the Dominion discovered the truth. If they realized humans were not just another prey species, what would they do? And more importantly, could Kylan himself betray what he was starting to admire? As night fell across distant human planets, Kylan watched the fleet anchor near a luminous blue world. Humans emerged in small shuttles, moving with calm purpose. They laughed, shared meals, and repaired their ships with gentle care. Even from his hidden position, Kylan could feel something strange in the air, a sense of hope, unity and courage that no Xylar warship could replicate. For the first time in his life, he felt doubt. The Dominion had taught him to see weakness in every species, to destroy before being destroyed. But as he watched humans care for each other, he felt a whisper in his mind, something dangerous and unfamiliar. Perhaps we are not the strongest. Perhaps we are the weak ones. Keelan sat in silence, staring at the human lights glowing softly in the distance. Shadows danced across the walls of his ship as the stars beyond continued to shine. And somewhere deep inside him, the first seed of change began to grow. An emotion no Xylar had ever been allowed. Respect for a human. The galaxy was quiet, but something in the void had already begun to shift. Kylan's scout ship hovered just beyond the edge of the human fleet. From a distance, it looked like a single, shining organism, a living constellation in the void. Each human ship moved with precision, weaving through the darkness with patterns that seemed both deliberate and beautiful. Even his trained Xylar eyes could not fully decipher the formations. Every maneuver, every turn, seemed perfectly timed, as if guided by an unseen force. Killen's heart, or what Xylars called a core pulse, pounded faster than it had ever done on any mission. He had seen thousands of ships in his life, witnessed battles and sieges, but nothing like this. These humans, these fragile creatures, had created a fleet that moved as one mind, yet retained the will of each soul. It was unsettling, even frightening. He adjusted his sensors, zooming in closer, careful not to be detected. Human ships were lit with a soft bluish glow that reflected off their sleek silver hulls. Kylan noticed something else. Small bursts of energy dancing between ships, almost like sparks of conversation. His mind struggled to understand. The Dominion's technology could never replicate such coordination. It was more than programming, it was instinct, trust, and perhaps something he could not name. Kylan watched as one human vessel, slightly smaller than the others, drifted near a damaged companion. Its crew deployed repair drones and projected a protective shield around the injured ship. The smaller crew did not hesitate. They worked together silently, their movements fluid and efficient. No Xylar crew had ever cared for another in this way. Xylar warriors fought for glory or survival, but humans seemed to fight for each other. He whispered to himself, almost afraid of the thought. They are not weak. They are stronger than us. As the scout edged closer, Kylan observed the communications between ships. Humans did not just send orders. They shared information like a living network. When one captain discovered a potential danger, the alert spread instantly, and nearby ships adjusted their movements before even encountering the threat. Kylan's mind reeled. The Dominion's fleets relied on command and control, hierarchy and obedience. Humans relied on trust, collaboration, and instinct. Suddenly, a small group of human fighters launched a training exercise. They moved like dancers, weaving between larger ships, avoiding simulated attacks with astonishing skill. Their speed, timing, and awareness were unmatched. Kylan could feel the adrenaline in the air, the quiet confidence of beings who knew they were capable yet remained calm. Even from his hidden position, he sensed the pride, courage, and unity that radiated from each vessel. Kylan began to notice moments that made his alien core ache in ways he did not understand. A small human crew helped a young recruit struggling to lift heavy equipment. A captain offered words of encouragement to another after a minor error. There was laughter, patience, and care, even among soldiers preparing for war. Such behavior was foreign to the Dominion. Compassion was weakness. Mercy was for the conquered, and yet here it thrived. Kylan felt a twinge of guilt. He had been sent to spy, to report weaknesses, and yet what he was seeing was not weakness, it was power. A power that no Dominion ship, no weapon, no strategy could measure or control. He realized that humans drew their strength from one another. Their fleet was a mirror of their hearts, brave, resilient, and united in purpose. Hours passed as Kylan continued to record, each moment feeding the unease growing within him. The scout ship's sensors picked up energy patterns he could not classify. algorithms his scientists would never understand. Humans did not fight like others. Their strength was fluid, adaptable, and alive. Kylan's mind, trained for years to calculate advantage and exploit weakness, found no openings, only possibilities for admiration and fear. That night, as he floated above a small blue-green planet, he watched the human fleet settle near orbit. The ships aligned like guardians around the world, and soft lights glimmered across their decks. Keelan saw humans moving between vessels, tending to machinery, sharing meals, and quietly talking with each other. Even at a distance, he could feel the warmth, the camaraderie, the unspoken bond that held the fleet together. Kylan's chest pulsed in an unfamiliar rhythm. He thought of the Dominion, of its rigid hierarchies and cold discipline, and felt a pang of doubt. Could a species so small, so seemingly fragile, truly possess the strength to change the balance of the galaxy? Could a fleet built on trust and courage withstand the might of an empire? For the first time in his life, Kylan felt a strange combination of fear and hope. Fear of what humans could do if angered, and hope that perhaps not all war needed to be destruction. He had been trained to see enemies as numbers and systems, but these humans were living, breathing beings, filled with purpose, heart, and unity. He leaned forward, gripping the controls, and whispered, almost as if the stars could hear him, "I do not understand them, but I am beginning to respect them. They are not what we expected. They are something more." And somewhere deep in the shadows of space, something stirred. Not a weapon, not a fleet, but a truth that would shake the Dominion in ways no Xylar had imagined. Humans were not just a species. They were a force, a storm, and a promise of something greater. Kylan's scout ship moved cautiously, hidden in the shadows of a massive asteroid field near the human fleet. He had watched them for days now, recording every maneuver, every gesture, every small act of unity. What he saw both fascinated and terrified him. Humans were unlike anything the Xylar Dominion had ever encountered. They were fragile, yes, but their strength was more than machinery. It came from heart, courage, and trust. As he drifted closer, his sensors detected a patrol group moving through the edge of the fleet. Kylan froze, holding his breath, or what Xylars called their core pulse. His stealth cloaking was near perfect, but human technology was surprisingly advanced. Even from afar, the patrol could sense anomalies in space. A sudden flicker of light reflected off his hull. One of the human ships had noticed him. "Unknown vessel detected. Identify yourself." A calm, authoritative voice echoed through the void. Kylan's antennas twitched nervously. His instinct screamed flee, hide, or attack. But something stopped him. There was no anger in that voice, no aggression, only curiosity and caution. Kylan made a decision that would change everything. Instead of fleeing, he allowed the patrol to approach, remaining as still as possible. The human ship slowed, its sensors scanning him in silence. He expected weapons to emerge, beams to slice through the dark, but nothing happened. Instead, a message appeared on his screen. "We see you. We mean no harm. Respect our space and you will not be attacked." Kylan's core pulsed wildly. In the Dominion, enemies were crushed immediately. Mercy was weakness. Threats were met with fire. Yet here humans were offering peace to a stranger, to a potential spy. He could hardly comprehend it. The small words, simple and clear, carried a weight far heavier than any weapon. He hesitated. Then he replied with a coded Xylar transmission, sending meaningless signals to mask his presence. The humans did not respond with suspicion or anger. Instead, they continued their patrol, moving with the same calm precision that had fascinated him for days. Kylan realized something profound. These humans did not need fear to enforce order. They relied on something deeper, something stronger. For the next hours, he shadowed them. He watched a small fighter struggling against a gravitational pull near a planet. Another human ship moved without hesitation, creating a shield that allowed the struggling craft to regain control. The smaller crew communicated silently, their actions precise, seamless, and almost instinctive. There was no panic, no anger, Only care, coordination, and courage. Kylan's mind, trained for strategy, calculations, and prediction, could not find a weakness. Every maneuver, every tactic seemed both deliberate and flexible. He saw humans take risks not out of recklessness but out of faith in each other. And every time they succeeded, he could almost feel the pride and relief radiating from the ships as if they were one living organism. The scout vessel moved closer to observe a larger part of the fleet. There, Kylan saw something that struck him more than any weapon or shield. A captain speaking to her crew, not with commands but with encouragement. Stay sharp. Protect each other. Trust in your brothers and sisters. We survive together or not at all. Kylan's antennas twitched in disbelief. The Dominion soldiers fought for conquest, glory, or survival. Humans fought for each other. They derived strength from connection, and that strength was far greater than any beam or missile. Kylan began to feel an unfamiliar emotion rising in his chest. Admiration. He was supposed to be gathering intelligence, yet he found himself watching with awe, almost longing, wishing he could be part of something so pure, so honest, and powerful. He realized that the Dominion's teachings, rules, fear, control were inadequate here. Humans followed a different code, one that could not be calculated or predicted. Suddenly, his sensors picked up a faint disturbance. Other Xylar ships were approaching, scanning for humans with the intent to attack. Kylan's first instinct was to report, to strike, to obey. But as he watched the humans ready themselves calmly and strategically, he felt a surge of doubt and fear. Could he betray them? Could he turn in a species so magnificent, so alive, to death? Kylan hesitated. He hesitated longer than he ever had on any mission. The human captain's voice echoed in his memory. Trust in each other. We survive together or not at all. He realized something terrifying for a Xylar. These humans were more than just a fleet. They were an idea, a force, a unity that no Dominion weapon could destroy easily. And in that moment, Kylan made a choice, not consciously, not fully, but deep within he decided he could not bring them harm. He drifted in the shadows, watching as humans continued their work, unaware of the eyes observing them. For the first time, he felt a strange bond with a species he had been sent to study. They had not even seen him as a threat, yet they had given him respect, patience, and dignity. Kylan whispered to himself, almost ashamed of the thought. I do not belong here. Yet I cannot leave. They are remarkable. The first encounter was over, but in the quiet darkness the seed of a profound change had been planted. Kylan knew his life, his loyalty, and perhaps even the fate of the Dominion were about to collide with something far greater than war, something human. Kylan lingered near the human fleet for days, observing their every move. Every moment revealed something new, something that chipped away at the rigid beliefs he had carried his whole life. He had been trained to see the universe in numbers, probabilities, and advantages, but these humans, small, fragile, and seemingly ordinary, defied every calculation. They moved as if their hearts guided them more than their technology. He watched a small skirmish simulation. Human ships darted like silver streaks, weaving around one another with astonishing skill. But what impressed Kylan most was not their speed or precision, it was their cooperation. Every ship anticipated the other's actions. Every maneuver was designed to protect not just itself but the fleet as a whole. When a vessel faltered, another immediately adjusted to cover it. No human yelled orders. No one panicked. They acted instinctively as if they shared one mind. Kylan's antennae twitched in disbelief. The Dominion's fleets relied on hierarchy, fear, and control. Any mistake was punished, any hesitation exploited. But humans seemed to draw power from trust, compassion, and loyalty. It was a concept he had never understood and had been trained to dismiss as weakness. Yet here he was seeing it in action, and it was terrifying in its strength. That night, Kylan's sensors picked up a small shuttle approaching a damaged supply ship. On board were two humans carrying tools and spare parts. One stumbled, dropping a heavy component. The other immediately helped, steadying the first and lifting the equipment together. No one shouted. No one blamed. It was a simple act of teamwork, of care. Keelan felt an unfamiliar tug at his core. The Dominion taught him to measure worth by strength, by efficiency, by conquest. Yet he watched humans choose to help instead of exploit, to protect instead of conquer. And he realized something that made his pulse uneven. Their strength came from their hearts, not just their weapons. Over the next few days, he observed more small gestures. A crew member helped another repair a hull breach, offering words of encouragement. Another shared a meal with someone too young to prepare their own. These acts seemed minor, even trivial, but they were constant, repeated thousands of times across the fleet. Humans were not only fighting together, they were living together with respect, empathy, and courage. Keelan began recording these moments carefully, even though he knew the Dominion would not understand them. He realized that no tactical report, no fleet movement, no weapon specification could truly capture what humans were. Their power was intangible, invisible to sensors, but inescapable in its effect. The more he watched, the more he understood that this was not just a fleet. It was a family, a community, a single organism made of many hearts beating as one. When one faltered, the others lifted it. When one struggled, the others helped. And every success, every victory, every small survival was shared by all. Keelan began to feel shame, a foreign and uncomfortable sensation. He had been sent to spy on humans, to find weakness, to bring intelligence back to the Dominion that might lead to their destruction. But now he realized there was no weakness to exploit, only strength he could not match and could not comprehend fully. He drifted in the shadows, watching the humans continue their daily routines. A captain spoke gently to her crew, calming fears, offering encouragement. Another crew member risked personal safety to fix a critical system, saving both ship and neighbor. Keelan's chest pulsed strangely. In Xylar culture, such actions would be called foolish or weak. Here they were called courage and honor. For the first time, Keelan asked himself a question he had been taught to ignore. What makes a species truly powerful? Was it weapons, numbers, territory, or was it something deeper, something that could not be measured, calculated, or controlled? As he watched humans, the answer became painfully clear. Power was unity, empathy, and courage in the face of impossible odds. Keelan's antennas twitched as he recorded the final moment of the day. A small crew gathered near a dying star, helping a ship whose engine had failed. They shared warmth, laughter, and words of hope. Despite the danger surrounding them, Keelan realized that these humans whom the Dominion had deemed insignificant were a force that could not be broken by fear or fire. Alone in his scout ship, Keelan whispered to himself, almost in awe, "They are more than ships, they are more than warriors. They are humanity, and I do not know if I can betray them." The lesson was clear. Humans were not to be underestimated. They were stronger, braver, and wiser than the Dominion could ever understand. And deep inside Keelan, a seed of doubt, admiration, and something like hope began to grow, a dangerous, transformative seed that would change everything. Keelan drifted silently near the edge of the human fleet, his sensors capturing every moment. He had spent days watching humans, learning their movements, understanding their patterns. But nothing he had seen prepared him for what he was about to witness. A human flagship, larger and more elegant than the others, moved to the center of the fleet. Its hull shimmered softly, reflecting the stars like a mirror. The humans aboard were gathering for what appeared to be a fleet-wide communication. Keelan's core pulsed faster. He had expected orders, commands, perhaps even harsh discipline. Instead, he heard something unexpected. Words that carried warmth, authority, and inspiration all at once. "Listen well," the human commander said, her voice calm but unwavering. "We defend not because it is easy. We defend because it is right. We protect not because we must, but because we can. Each of you is vital. Each of you matters. And together, We are unstoppable. Kylan's antennas twitched and his pulse quickened. The words were simple, yet they carried an immense weight. In the Dominion, strength came from fear and dominance. Obedience was demanded and individuality was suppressed. But here, humans drew strength from choice, courage, and unity. He observed the human ships respond as one. Energy shields flared in synchronized patterns, defensive formations shifted seamlessly, and communication flowed like a river, connecting every vessel. The humans trusted each other completely, anticipating moves, protecting the weak, and preparing for danger with calm confidence. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. Kylan felt an unfamiliar stir in his chest. Admiration, yes, but also doubt. Could his mission still make sense? Could he still betray these beings? Now that he had seen the truth of their power, he replayed the commander's words in his mind. Each of you is vital. Each of you matters. And together, we are unstoppable. He realized that humans were not just a fleet. They were an idea made real, a force that could not be calculated or destroyed with numbers or weapons alone. Every ship, every crew member, every small act of courage added to the whole, creating a power that transcended technology. Then Kylan noticed something that shocked him further. A smaller human ship had begun drifting too close to a dangerous asteroid belt. Sensors showed the craft's shields weakening. Another human vessel immediately altered course, projecting its energy field to shield the smaller ship. The two crews worked together without hesitation. No orders were shouted. No panic arose. Every movement was precise, thoughtful, and selfless. Kylan's pulse surged with something he could not name. He had trained to see weakness, yet he could find none. Instead, he saw strength rooted in compassion and loyalty, in the courage to protect others even at great risk. He had expected chaos and disorder. What he found instead was mastery through unity. As he observed, Kylan reflected on the Dominion's teachings. Conquest, fear, and control had been the foundation of his life. Everything he knew was being questioned. Could the empire he served truly survive against such a species? Could his people, who valued strength without compassion, possibly match the humans' combined courage and ingenuity? Kylan felt a dangerous seed growing inside him, doubt. He was supposed to gather intelligence, report weaknesses, and pave the way for the Dominion's conquest. But he could not bring himself to see these humans as merely prey. They had shown him honor, bravery, and unity that the Dominion could not comprehend. For the first time, Kylan wondered, could it be that the humans are stronger than us not because of their weapons but because of their hearts? His sensors picked up a subtle signal, an approaching fleet of Xylar warships likely dispatched to prepare for a surprise attack. Kylan froze. This was the moment to report, to obey, to fulfill his mission. But as he looked back at the human fleet, he felt something he had never felt before. Loyalty to the humans, not his own people. He thought of the smaller ships saved by their companions, of the commander inspiring her crews with courage and respect, of the countless small acts of compassion he had witnessed. Kylan realized that these humans were not just warriors. They were a force of unity and will, something the Dominion could never crush with brute strength alone. His antennas twitched with a strange emotion. Fear, yes, but also hope. Perhaps there was a path that did not lead to destruction, a choice that honored the strength he had seen. Kylan understood in that moment that his life and decisions would never be the same. The humans had revealed something far greater than power. The true meaning of courage, of loyalty, of being part of something larger than oneself. And deep in the shadows of space, Kylan made a silent vow. Whatever happened next, whatever the Dominion demanded, he would protect this truth, even if it meant betraying everything he had been taught to believe. The revelation had come. The humans were no longer just a fleet to spy upon. They were a lesson that would echo across the stars. Kylan's core pulsed with a mix of fear and awe as he hovered near the human fleet. For days he had watched them, learning, observing, and slowly realizing that everything he had believed about strength and power was wrong. Humans were not merely ships and weapons. They were a force built on courage, compassion, and unity. Today, something extraordinary happened. Sensors detected a Dominion strike force moving through the void, faster and deadlier than any fleet Kylan had seen. They were coming for the humans, expecting an easy victory. Kylan's pulse tightened. The moment to report had arrived. Every instinct screamed obedience, loyalty to the Dominion. Yet his antennas twitched with hesitation. Could he betray what he had come to respect and even admire? Kylan made a decision. He would not allow the Dominion to strike unopposed. He activated the hidden protocols he had prepared secretly, ones that could confuse, mislead, and disrupt his own people. The Xylar warships were fast, precise, and relentless. But they had never faced humans, and they certainly had never faced humans guided by the wisdom of one of their own. He sent false coordinates, misleading the incoming Dominion fleet into a web of illusions and traps. He manipulated sensor readings, projecting phantom ships where none existed. Every step he took was a calculated risk. Yet every move carried a moral weight far heavier than any weapon he had ever wielded. As the Dominion warships advanced, the human fleet responded with quiet precision. Kylan watched, heart racing as human vessels shifted formation with breathtaking coordination. Shields flared, weapons aligned, and smaller crafts moved like silver dancers, protecting one another and closing off every avenue of attack. The humans were ready not because they feared the enemy, but because they trusted each other completely. Kylan's pulse thumped violently in his chest as he realized something profound. These humans, whom the Dominion considered weak and primitive, were now preparing to face overwhelming odds and survive. Not by brute force, but by unity and courage. And he, a Xylar scout, was playing a part in giving them the chance to do so. The battle began, though at first it was more a dance than a fight. Dominion ships struck, but their attacks were misdirected, falling into carefully prepared traps. Human vessels countered with exact precision, using tactics that Kylan could barely understand. He watched as one human destroyer shielded 3 smaller craft from a concentrated attack, sacrificing itself temporarily to protect others. Another fired pulses that disrupted enemy systems, not for destruction, but to create openings for human ships to move safely. Kylan's antennas twitched uncontrollably. He had trained to calculate outcomes, to predict victories, to measure strength, but this was different. Humans were unpredictable not because they were reckless, but because they thought differently, acted with heart, and relied on unity. No Dominion calculation could account for that. Hours passed, yet it felt like minutes. Kylan's hidden protocols continued to guide the Dominion fleet into confusion. And all the while, humans moved with calm precision, protecting each other, communicating without words, and displaying courage that inspired even a scout from a rival empire. Kylan realized he had crossed a line. He could never return to the Dominion and claim loyalty. He had become part of something greater, part of the humans' vision, courage, and unity. He had betrayed his own empire. Yes, but in doing so, he had preserved life, hope, and the extraordinary strength of humanity. The turning point came when Kylan saw the Xylar flagship falter. Caught in one of his carefully crafted traps, energy pulses disrupted their shields, leaving them exposed. Human vessels moved in unison, striking with minimal force yet maximal effect, disabling rather than destroying. Kylan's pulse surged with a mixture of fear, awe, and an unexplainable pride. In that moment, he understood the truth. The Dominion had underestimated humans not because of their weapons or numbers, but because they had no understanding of the power that comes from unity, courage, and heart. One human ship could not defeat the Dominion, but a fleet bound by trust, loyalty, and purpose could rewrite the rules of war entirely. Kylan whispered to himself, feeling tears he did not know a Xylar could shed. They are unstoppable, not because of what they have, but because of what they are. As the Dominion fleet retreated in confusion, the human commander did not gloat. She moved among her crew, ensuring every ship and crew member was safe. Her calm, her courage, her leadership, these were the forces that had turned potential disaster into a moment of triumph. Kylan watched in awe, realizing the humans had not only survived, they had taught him the true meaning of strength. That night, in the shadows of space, Kylan made his final choice. He would stand with the humans, guide them if needed, and ensure that no Dominion force could strike unopposed. He had betrayed an empire, yes, but he had gained something far greater, the chance to witness, to protect, and to learn from a species that embodied the heart, courage, and unity of a true force in the galaxy. The turning point had passed. From this moment, the humans were not merely survivors. They were a storm that would reshape the stars. Kylan drifted in the shadow of a silent star, his sensors still tuned to the remnants of the Dominion fleet. What had once been an empire of fear and fire was now crumbling, scattered by forces it had never truly understood. The humans had survived, yes, but more than that. They had triumphed in a way that no Xylar weapon, no strategy, and no fear could match. The Dominion ships attempted to regroup, but Kylan's interference, combined with the humans' unmatched unity and courage, had created chaos in their ranks. Entire squadrons vanished into the void, disabled not by brute force but by human tactics that relied on trust, foresight, and adaptability. Kylan watched in awe and disbelief. They had called him a spy, a scout, a servant of the Dominion, but he now realized he had witnessed something far greater than loyalty or duty. He had witnessed humanity itself. The human flagship hovered at the center of their fleet, glowing like a beacon of light against the darkness. Crew members moved with calm purpose, repairing, guiding, and supporting one another. Kylan's eyes, trained for calculation and combat, could not measure the power of what he saw. It was not just technology, it was spirit, courage, and unity made real. Admiral Vorek's voice came over the Dominion communications, furious, demanding answers. "Report, how has this happened? How are humans still standing? Where is our advantage?" Kylan's antennas twitched. For the first time, he spoke words that were not for deception or survival, but for truth. He transmitted his report, not of weakness, but of strength the Dominion could never match. He told them of human courage, of their unity, of their ability to protect each other and overcome impossible odds. He described how humans drew power not from fear or weapons, but from heart, loyalty, and purpose. There was silence on the other end, then chaos. The Dominion could not process what they had lost. An empire built on fear, strategy, and brute force had been undone, not by superior weapons, but by the truth of humanity. Kylan watched the remaining Dominion ships retreat, their formations broken, their confidence shattered. Humans pursued only minimally, choosing to secure the fleet rather than annihilate their enemies. The lesson had been learned, not through destruction but through example, courage, and unity. The scout ship moved closer to the flagship. Kylan observed the captain speaking to her crew, her calm voice carrying authority and warmth. "We defend each other," she said, "and that makes us stronger than any force that would seek to destroy us." Kylan's pulse, or what humans might have called a heart, throbbed with emotion. He thought of the countless small acts he had witnessed, a crew member helping another lift heavy equipment, a captain calming fears, shields thrown to protect weaker ships, laughter shared in moments of tension. Every gesture, every action had mattered. Every act of courage had contributed to this victory. He realized then that humans were more than warriors. They were a force shaped by connection, empathy, and shared purpose. They were not perfect and they were vulnerable, but together they were unstoppable. The Dominion had fallen because it never understood that strength without heart is hollow, and numbers without unity are meaningless. Kylan's core pulsed with pride, awe, and humility. He had once served the Dominion, obeyed its commands, and believed in its superiority. Now he understood the truth. Humans had not only survived, they had rewritten the rules of the galaxy. And he, a former spy for the Dominion, had played a part in preserving that truth. He looked out into the fleet, seeing humans moving among their ships, checking systems, repairing damages, comforting one another. They did not celebrate with arrogance. They did not boast of victory. Instead, they shared gratitude, care, and determination, a quiet, unshakable strength. Kylan understood now why rumors of humanity's might had spread across the stars. It was not in their weapons or numbers. It was in who they were and how they stood together. Kylan whispered to himself, tears he did not know a Xylar could shed falling silently. I never knew a species could be so magnificent. Not for power, not for conquest, but for courage, heart, and unity. Truly, humanity is unstoppable. The Dominion's empire was in ruins, scattered across the void. Systems once controlled with fear and violence had been abandoned, ships destroyed or disabled, and leaders left to ponder a lesson they could not understand. But Kylan knew this truth, and in the silence of the stars, it burned brighter than any weapon. Unity, courage, and heart could overcome fear, power, and oppression. As the human fleet sailed onward, peaceful yet ready for anything, Kylan remained near the edge of the formation, watching and learning. He had witnessed history, and he had learned the greatest lesson of all. Never underestimate humanity, for their strength lies not in what they wield, but in what they are. And in that quiet, endless darkness, a seed of hope spread across the stars, the knowledge that courage, compassion, and unity could reshape even the galaxy itself. Humanity had proven once and for all that even the greatest empires could fall before the heart of a single united species.